Well then, that was certainly one of the more interesting binge watches of a television show that I have ever experienced. Yes, I have finally done it. I have watched all of Severance Season 1, a show that many people out there right now are saying is the show of the television zeitgeist at the moment. A show that I knew absolutely nothing about going in, and I think that ultimately ended in a much better experience for me coming out of Season 1. This is a show that, quite frankly, I still have no fucking idea what is going on or what it is even about, and I think for many different reasons, that is all for the better. So, in this video, I am going to analyze Severance Season 1 to the best of my ability, with how many people have recommended the show to me given Season 2 just started. I am fully ready to dive into this world now that I am caught up with everyone else. To everyone watching the video who has seen Severance already, what is it like for you waiting 3 years after that major cliffhanger at the end of Season 1? Let me know down below in the comments. For this analysis, I might jump all over the place to discuss different things, but more than anything, the first thing I want to talk about is the fact that I am so surprised the show was able to keep my attention for as long as it could through those 9 episodes. A show where I was both interested and disinterested at first, but only got better as time went on. It's a style of slow burn that you don't often see in many television shows, at least when it comes to how well they are executed. That's why I would say to someone else who is new to this show that it might not be for them if they are unable to keep up with the extremely slow progression of the plot and the story. All 9 episodes take you through every minute detail that you can think of, and it's a style of storytelling that again only works if well executed. It relies heavily on style and substance as well, with using certain camera shots and ways of framing scenes that is very meticulous and purposeful, and I like movies and shows when they do that. Instead of rushing into major plot points or big reveals, the show focuses on character development and gradual world building. This allows the audience to invest in the characters and their journeys, creating for a sense of anticipation as they watch small changes and shifts unfold. I would say that just about every one of the episodes has something like that is folded within the story, along with very good cliffhangers to end off each episode. The show's slow burn approach also means that the tension and drama grow organically rather than feeling forced, which can make the payoff feel even more satisfying when it finally arrives, which is what I personally got with that episode 9 finale cliffhanger. And I find it funny that for someone like me who is not in the position of having to wait all 3 of those years for the new season, it now is just even more exciting that I can just jump right into Season 2 without having to wait. That's why it doesn't shock me that at least more recently I've had people recommend the show to watch, just so that I can be there immediately for Season 2 along with everybody else. Again though, I can't harp on it enough that Severance Season 1 is almost near masterful in its slow burn storytelling because it's just so intriguing. The show's premise is where employees of this company called Lumon undergo a procedure that separates their work and personal lives, and I find that it just sets up a very eerie and mysterious world, and instead of explaining everything to you, it kind of just lets the viewer think on it for themselves in order to peel back the layers of this world. I think another aspect of the show that fits so well into that style of storytelling is the fact that it's not afraid to be weird and disinteresting at times. At first, when you hear me say that, you might think I sound crazy, but when you watch the show, I think you would understand why I say that. I'm certainly not trying to project the idea that the show is not taking itself seriously in any way, because I do think that it does, but it also infuses such a well-balanced amount of weirdness and quirkiness that again adds to the extremely compelling nature of the slow burn storytelling style that it's accustomed to. And it's funny because I think that the show's intro paired with that very simplistic piano theme is what I mean by that. It's certainly one of the weirdest television show intros that I've ever seen, but I think it does fit. The intro paints a picture as to the premise of the show with the 2 different lives, in the sense that it really does set the stage for the show being very odd, but it's in the way that the people in the show interact with each other that makes it so effective that way. Between almost every single one of the characters in the show, there is a good balance of how the show mixes dark comedy versus tension, or its ability to include these subtle absurdities like workplace traditions in the offices at Lumon that, in a way, help paint a picture of just a small ounce of social commentary. By blending the strange and the serious together, the show creates an environment where you can simultaneously laugh, feel uneasy at times, and then also contemplate the implications of certain elements within the writing that latch onto aspects of real life. In the end, this is how the show keeps you hooked, and I find that, again, it's such a strange way to go about making a show like this, but I think it's done for the best reasons that allow someone like me to want to keep watching. I did just give a slight hint to it, but there is definitely, I feel like, at least with how I looked at it, a very subtle aspect of social commentary and messaging within the writing and Season 1's story. The show plays with the idea of how each of these characters play two separate lives because of the severance procedure that they underwent. I think it's a very interesting way to help commentate on the idea of what it means for your average everyday person to live a life in the job that help keeps them going, but also their life outside of that, where both lives either help keep them sane or makes them go crazy. In particular, I find that to be the most interesting with Mark, our main character, who I should say is well played by Adam Scott. He lives a somewhat not fun life outside of work, where he does his best around his family, but also has to deal with that thought in mind that he lost his wife in a tragic accident. The job part of his severance life is what he describes as the thing that would help keep him going without having to think about that, considering that your innie version, as they call it, is not able to know what your life is like with the outie version. I think that Adam Scott plays off those themes of his character very well, and I'm not sure how many other actors could pull that off in a way that would feel compelling. I found this to also be quite intriguing with our other main characters like Dylan, Irving, and then Helly, who finds herself to be the biggest aspect of the story for why events unfold throughout the season. But I think all three of them, in their own way, also represent the other aspect of commentary in the show, which is the idea of focusing on work culture, your identity, and then also the consequences of being inside of a company that is extreme with corporate control. That corporate control, I think, is very well played out through the characters of Kobel and then Milchek. They represent such a dehumanized aspect of work life that you can definitely see unravel so much throughout the other four main characters. It offers an interesting aspect of relatability that I think many audience members would want to find in their characters. I've already worked multiple jobs in my life at this point with my age, and I totally related to several things that went on, but certainly not the most extreme stuff. It really just is so fascinating, and Severance is able to use this bizarre but also very sci-fi premise as a lens to examine the real-world issues around that aspect of workplace exploitation, mental health, and so on. I personally believe that if the show didn't have that more sci-fi aspect to it, it wouldn't work as much as when it does have it. Sure, I think that certain things can be a little over-exaggerated at times with how it goes about this stuff, but I think it uses it well enough to where it makes the social commentary, but also those more sci-fi elements feel deeply relevant and thought-provoking. I mean, we're living in a time right now in the real world where technology is advancing by the year. Workplace environments are getting trickier with how people act doing certain things, and I think this show is a really interesting way to look at that. Also, I think it would be wrong of me to not speak on the actors because everyone here did an absolutely fantastic job. Adam Scott, as I already said, was fantastic. Britt Lower as Helly is also great. John Turturro, Zach Cherry, Tramell Tillman, Jen Tullock, Dichen Lachman, the great Christopher Walken, and then Patricia Arquette, who I'll admit is not all that great in her role, but is subtle enough to where I still like her character, and I'm curious to know what her endgame is going to be going into Season 2. But speaking of actors, I think more than anything, I have to give a massive shout out to Ben Stiller, who is the executive producer on the show, along with a guy named Dan Erickson, who helped Ben with creating the show, but also Eric is the main writer of it all. If you would have told me that a guy like Ben Stiller would be responsible for not just creating the show, but also helping to direct several episodes, I would have told you were crazy, because we already knew that he was a very talented actor comedically and dramatically, but I never once would have thought that he would be somebody involved in creating one of the world's most popular shows right now. Again, he didn't write the show, but he helped to make it, and I think that is very impressive. Also, I don't know if anybody else has ever noticed this, but I find that Adam Scott, playing the character of Mark, is strangely similar to how I've also seen Ben Stiller play characters in other films. I mean, I could also see that Ben Stiller could have played the character of Mark, but I wonder if anybody here has ever noticed that that could have been a possibility. So let's talk about that in the comments if you had that thought in mind. And speaking of impressive, let's talk about Dan Erickson, because if you go on his IMDb, you'll notice that the dude quite literally does not have a portfolio. He produced 2 TV series and then also only ever written one with Severance. This is strikingly impressive for someone who has not really delved all that much into making his own stuff. I think what this goes to show is that if you can just put pen to paper and start writing down ideas for something, and you can find yourself creating a show like this, then just about anything can happen. All you gotta do is just think about something, write it down, and then sort out all of it in a storyboard style way where you can map out the story and make it all make sense before sending it off to a studio to help greenlight. I think something like this can be very inspirational to an up-and-coming director or writer if they want to make something in the future. At the end of the day, though, all it comes down to is execution, and it seems like these guys really do have their heads in the right places when they made this show, because it is just exquisitely made to a level that you would never expect if you were to read the material on paper and then see what it would look like finished on the big screen. More than anything, I think these guys deserve massive credit and respect from the audience because they are currently running away with a show that no one would have ever expected were to be this good. I was one of those people going into watching the show, and having now watched season 1 for the first time, that is ultimately what I came away with from what I experienced. But there you have it. That's my analysis of Severance season 1. By the time this video is out, I probably will have caught up fully on season 2, and I can't wait to speak with you all about it. I still have absolutely no idea what this show is about and what the hell is going on, but in time, I'm sure we will find out. What do you all think of the show and my analysis of it? Leave your comments down below, and let's have a nice and respectful conversation about it. I can't ask enough that you do be respectful, as I do read everyone's comments to the best of my ability. Thank you all for stopping by my channel. If you want to see more moving forward from me with regards to film and television, and you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and subscribe if you are new here, and turn on that notification bell. I'm trying to build a community on here, and your support would be appreciated. That's a wrap, folks. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day, and I will see you all soon for the next video.